probably the best advice that I got, and it was first semester grad school, is someone saying to me, you need a network of people in terms of, even if you're pinned to one advisor, or a mentor or a sponsor, you need a network of people to help you to move forward and get what you need. Also, it's important to be reflective for yourself in terms of thinking about, okay, I have this relationship, but I notice I'm not getting this out of this. How do I get that somewhere else? So my academic mother, Jessica Henderson Daniel, she was the first Black woman president of the American Psychological Association. So a barrier breaker in and of herself, and grew up, in the South, and just a lot of legacy of Black strength and resilience and beauty and inspiration. And I, remember meeting her on interview day and was just like, oh my God, if I came here, I know I wouldn't work with her because she was only teaching a course in my program at that time, but I built a relationship with her, and she became a major part of my mentorship network, because there were conversations that I could have with her that weren't being held in other spaces. There were just ways in which, even though she didn't have a research career, she was like a sponsor. She would hear about things and be like, hey, Sannisha, see this email? Hey, Sannisha, what about this? Or she would have this way of calling me out of the blue that I was like, how do you know? She was like, I had a feeling, just checking on you, so finding different people in your network who can support and pour into you, I think is important when you think about grad school. I think also recognizing that you have so many gifts and that there's no other you, right? I think when I was in grad school, for me, I went to grad school after taking 2 years off and working. And actually I traveled and lived in China for a year before going back and working. But when I went back into grad school and I was, taking classes, I was like, yeah, this theory is cool, but it's problematic in this way. And I became really comfortable with like bringing my whole self into the classroom and let that engage, like the discussions, help with the engagement around the discussions and the content, because I'm like, knowledge is not static. And when we think about who has the privilege to write, to publish and disseminate information, and who many of the recognized forefathers of the theories of psychology, there are a lot of things that are lacking, and a lot of ways in which isms is played into that. So there is a need to have critical conversations when we think about psychology. And so I saw that and I was like, yeah, my lived experience is coming to class every day. And I will be asking you a critical question about that theory because it don't make sense to me, And so, so that was also something that I felt that helped me in grad school, because I wasn't just like stuffing in information and trying to fit into other people's perception of what either psychology as a field has the potential to be, or like what the knowledge is applicable to or not. I was a part of the active learning process. I'm like, I'm here, I'm going to be here for 3 hours in this 1-day class. And so we're going to make sure that I actually get something out of it and that it's fruitful. And so that was an attitude that was very helpful to me as well. And just, recognizing that like we're lifelong learners. Even in grad school, I kept my foot in community a lot because it built me. And when I say by built me, meaning I remember sitting with folks, and just as a doctoral student, I was doing an interview or doing stuff, and they're like, you're going to be a doctor? And I'm like, yeah, and there's also cultural people like, okay, Dr. Dale, I'm calling you Dr. Dale starting today. I'm like, well, I'm not finished yet, but I'm like, yes, okay. Inspiration. There are ways in which people outside of academia see your value, see your worth, and will help you. It also gives you a reflective lens to realize that you're going to have an impact, that the tools you take from academia can be implemented in a way that's going to influence people's lives. And so, when the coursework isn't going that great or something you're struggling with, you have to keep your purpose in mind. You have to define that for yourself. What is it that you ultimately want to do? And that could be done in many ways. Many of us end up in strict academic paths. Some of us end up in industry. Some of us end up in other, domains of how we do our work. But you have to start defining your purpose for yourself. Like, what is it that I ultimately want? And I recognize that for me is that I wanted to have positive impact on community. I actually jump up the most when I get feedback from residents or participants and so forth about the impact of what we're doing, more so than I jump up for a pub. I know I should because I publish a lot and whatever, but like, honesty, when somebody says to me, I've gotten like emails over the years when somebody will just out of the blue write me something and say that, what we did and, the help that you gave me back then, or the benefit of Step AD and how it's changed how I do things now. And when I read those, I'm like, I get teary-eyed. I'm like, yes, like, that's what I want. I want to have an impact. And I want to learn, and I want to be critiqued and grow as a human being. So I would say find your purpose, find the thing for you. It's not the same for everybody, but it truly matters. And just show up as yourself. The learning is for you.